Hello and welcome to the Transfer Show. We're running a little bit late. Terribly sorry for those of you who are waiting in the comments, but we'll make it worth your while with some good info, I hope, over the course of this show. I'm Trev Downey. I'm podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland, and I am joined by our transfer guru, Mr. Dave Davis. Who'd have thought it, Dave? But we've got another show full of info, if possible, even more in this one than the last.
I genuinely don't know what's going on. Maybe you called it a few weeks ago because transfer window 1 is opening so soon after the season closes. And bar the Champions League places, your relegation bit's sewn up, isn't it? So that plays a part in who's moving. A lot of your stuff is done, bar the Champions League, which we'll see whether moves will and won't happen. So stuff is just starting to move rapido.
Yeah, and I am firmly of the belief, and I kind of, I'm going to say something here, and I'm lying. I was going to say part of me hopes that I'm wrong here, but that's a lie. All of me hopes that I'm right here when I say it. I think with our club specifically, when the job gets done, whenever that is, whatever week that is, we all hope it's next weekend. But when it gets done, I seriously think the wheels are going to come off in terms of the movement. It feels like it's being held together now as we kind of get this rickety thing just across the line. Nobody's enjoying the football. Nobody's enjoying the form. That none of it is even vaguely relevant because all we want to do is we just win this title. And we know there's going to be big movement around the club. It feels like that could really start to kick into gear, I think, when we finally achieve what we've set out to achieve in terms of the league. Let's keep an eye on that. But the big one, Dave, we have to start with, because there's no choice in the matter here. It's the topic on everyone's tongues at the moment, is Trent Alexander-Arnold. And as you headlined this little part of the agenda or plan for the show today, 2 out of 3 did seem to be okay. But what now? Because lots of people are getting very giddy, Dave, on the back of Trent's winner, which is a huge boost to us. 3 of the 6 points that we need to get ourselves across the line. On his return with his left foot. We also, the interview afterwards, I thought the guy on Sky, I think it was, pretty much softballed him right till the end and then gave him every opportunity to say something that could have been vague and yet hopeful. And yet I didn't find it to be hopeful at all. And I found it to be quite conclusive, in my opinion, one way. But I'm anxious to hear what you think about this. And more to the point, how does it tie in with our show here? What are people like Joyce saying? And, we also have the kicker on in terms of, we heard interesting news about Curtis Jones and Connor Bradley's contracts. Little bit of a twist on the Curtis story, whether it's people making mischief or not. And then, like I say, the Trent one is where we have to start before we even get to Ibu Kanate and Willie Wonty. So let's start with Trent. Your take on it. What's going on? What's the latest? And what's your own personal opinion on
it? Personal opinion, he's gone. Forget it. A Liverpool tour guide review, all the latest things, gone. Finito, the end. Bring out your dead, as they say in Monty Python in that bit. It's done. It's absolutely over for me. And you saw, like you said, the interview at the end, pretty much he gave it away, the wry smile. I mean, a celebration, a top off, the tap of the head, all that, it's done. It's absolutely done. Everyone's just waiting for the inevitable. And even this interview that's on the screen, for those who can't see it, from Virgil, when he's asked about Trent's future. Since I've joined this club, he has been a fantastic, fantastic player. And there's a lot of good things that he will always be remembered for if he decides to leave. I didn't realise that Virgil van Dijk had taken out an obituary in the Times for Trent Alexander-Arnold, but there you go. And then almost like, oh no, we're not supposed to say that, the final line. But at this point, we don't know as a group what's going to happen. I adore the skipper, an icon of mine. I'm not convinced that that's maybe the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Let's put it that way. I think they all pretty much know what's coming there. That's important to say. The other one, as you said, it contracts. I don't like the noises we're getting around this. We talked about this last week. As that Paul Joyce story, Ibu in his final year, and that line that talks don't appear particularly advanced. Now, we said there's just this worry on this, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the whole Dean Huijsen and the strong links that are coming out that we've mentioned many weeks, just keep getting bigger and bigger. I like both players. I love Ibu. I want him to stay. I want him to renew. I want Huijsen to come in and reinforce. I think that's a brilliant addition. Then your centre-back line looks super strong, no doubt. My worry is this is advancing towards one in, one out, like a dodgy nightclub type of situation. And the drop-off right now between the two is big for me. And we've done a few pods on it, me and Bart's as well, when you renew it. All the metrics suggest that right now at the same time. So I don't like that. We talked about it on Media Matters and just speaking to other journalists. There's just almost a wonder at, and I'm going to use my own phrase on this, Trev. It feels like this could be the contract hill the suits die on. That they can't just keep giving everyone almost, like a deal and we keep busting that, And for Konate, as the suggestions are from Joyce's article, to go from sort of 80 to around 200 grand a week. Now, people will say, and please, I don't debate this for one single second about World Cup final, Champions League, captain of, I totally get that. But there will come a point where the suits, whoever you want to call them, will say there's a line and we can't just keep busting everyone because of the knock-on effect that will have. Because if they do go to 200 grand a week for Konate, and listen, I would do it. It's not my money, as we always say. I would absolutely do it myself. But they'll know the implications of that when they're trying to negotiate this contract with Connor Bradley, who's playing it beautifully, by the way. Because everyone in the press is saying, like, number one, Trent's replacement, he's ready for it. And Connor Bradley, which, wholeheartedly I believe him, is saying, as we know, Liverpool fan want to be all the right notes at all the right times. So there's that negotiation as well. We've also talked about Curtis Jones, who's also turned down a first offer. And it's not been lost on a few. He was not happy coming on late yesterday, was he? And he was certainly not happy at full time as he trudges off the pitch without recognising anyone, applauding the fans, anything like that. So that comes into the mix as well. I think almost people have said, Trev, well, Van Dijk, we're on track with the contracts. Van Dijk's a great signing on top of Salah. Brilliant business. But there's a lot to do, and we've just got to be careful we don't get excited too soon because there's quite a few contracts still to sort with a number of players.
The Curtis one, just for the sake of teasing it out a bit, I think people are talking about, like you said, the fact that he went straight off the pitch as opposed to having any moment to celebrate with the away fans who were, to be fair to them, incredibly effective, I thought, at the weekend. Hats off to the travelling cop and anyone who made up its number. But I will say this, it's going to stick in the craw of any lad, but especially a Liverpool lad, and you don't get much more Liverpool than Curtis, to be hearing about the Scouser in our team and the chant and the delight and the reveling in Trent Alexander-Arnold, when the likelihood is that Trent knows, just like Virgil knew when he was saying what he was saying, that lad's on his bike. Trent didn't even try to hide that in his post-match interview. He could have said something. He could have made some sort of a sop to the fans. It's not a noble stance, what he's doing. I won't speak on my situation. He tried to spin it around. I've heard some people try to talk about it, and some people have their heads buried in the sand about this. It could still happen. Whatever, that's fine. If you want to believe that, that's fine. But you got to trust what you see. You got to trust what you hear. And when I saw Curtis heading off down the tunnel, I was thinking, it might just stick in my craw a little bit to be hearing the Scouser in our team about a lad who's about to jog on to Real Madrid while you have been dropped effectively for a subpar Dam Szoboszlai, and he's been subpar for a good while now, if we're being honest. And a subpar Gravenberch as well. and you can't get in the mix there. So I can kind of understand it. I don't like that ever, but I can kind of understand it.
Yeah.
And you can see where people are creating a narrative around that. The Konate thing is worth teasing out for a second, because there's a few people here in the comments, and it will always go this way, people are very vociferously for or against the ownership group. I think you and I are kind of famously indifferent. We're kind of sign the checks and we'll like you kind of thing, and it's very hard to get any warmth at night from a well-run club. Doesn't really do it for me. So it is what it is, and you can be all sanctimonious about how well run we are and all the rest of it, but we want to see our squad treated properly. If Ibu Konate goes, Dave, let's just tease that one out for a second. The money boys go the way you think they might go, and they do die on that hill as it is, and they say, yeah, you know what, this is the one where we draw a line, because we can't be doing that with everyone. We have a few exceptional footballers and we give them exceptional wages. And sorry, lad, you're just below the line of exceptional right now where we stand. Say they do that, we are left then with Kwanzaa, who it looks to me like the manager might not be 100% on, and Joe Gomez, who can't keep himself fit. Wonderful footballer and all as he is. That's not tenable. That is not tenable going into a season, is it? In any way, shape, or form, we can't do that. I'm by the way, I'm including a recruit for Ibu. A recruit for Ibu. Say the kid Hyson. We get him. We have Virgil. We can't go with just Kwanzaa and Gomez. We can't, because Kwanzaa isn't necessarily that fancied, it seems, and that could change, of course. But Joe, we can't rely on Joe. He's great, but we can't rely on him. So it doesn't seem to me that would be adequate. What do you think there? That's why I'm hopeful there will be movement and recruitment in this particular area.
Yeah, and it would almost be, I'd feel sorry for Huijsen, because the pressure would, if that happens, would just ramp up on that kid straight away. Everyone would be saying like, so you're Konate's replacement. Let's see if you can form a partnership like Ibu did with Virgil straight away. And the pressure just gets lumped on a 20-year-old kid, essentially, straight away, who's being his second season. And he's torn up trees at Bournemouth. He's been brilliant. You can see the potential. But there's still the gap, with greatest respect, from Bournemouth to Liverpool is ginormous. And to play in the Champions League and all those things. And as we know with centre-halves as well, Trev, young centre-half develop later on because their reading of the game gets better. Of course it does. It's natural. And you have ups and downs with young centre-halves, don't you, at the same time, like we've seen with Kwanzaa and others. So I am actually really worried if that happens, because it should be a positive with Huijsen coming in and us recruiting young talent like that. It should be on top of what we've got. If Ibu goes, you're all of a sudden going, yeah, we kept Virgil van Dijk, massive positive. But now you've got an injury-prone 28-year-old, a 20-odd-year-old that Slot clearly doesn't trust, if that's what it is, and Huijsen, who there's massive pressure to come in and be Ibu almost straight away. So like you think, I think we need another fifth experienced centre-half who we can plug and play straight away alongside Virgil and, have an option there. Otherwise, it's a bit of a worry. But the easiest option is just get Ibu renewed and then everyone's happy. But I am worried this is the one that line is drawn on. Really am.
Yeah, and I can see where you're going with that. It makes sense to me. But when you also take into account, we're going to be doing a show about right backs, because we're both, just to wrap this up, you are very much of the opinion, aren't you, that he's on his bike, Trent? Yes. 100%. So we are going to be having a show this week about right back potentials, replacements. And we just did one on left backs because we've spoken about that at length on the last show. So there could be tremendous amounts of upheaval. And the more, I think, continuity we have there, the better, especially with really fantastic footballers like Ibu Konate. However, we can move on now to some interesting bits and bobs in terms of ins and outs, because the Trent thing, I think, is beyond tedious at this stage for all of us. And he's the one who's making it that way. But you've got some great Liverpool and Chelsea related links, including Chelsea kind of getting the better of us. Chelsea kind of putting in the cheekiest of bids for someone an awful lot of people won't believe. And us again being rivals for up and coming talent like Huijsen and Hato. And you've even got an Ornstein tie-in. So let's hear the Chelsea-Liverpool crossover in terms of the stories we've got out there.
We mentioned this one a few weeks ago, and again, it's just starting to come out in the mainstream areas. Probably pronounced his name wrong, but Darius Hugo, currently on loan at Las Palmas, a Sporting Lisbon player, that Chelsea beat us to him, mainly because Chelsea can give those 8 years plus a 9-year extension, £8 million a week deals that we're just never going to for young midfielders. So they will beat us on a few deals if we compete like that. Not all of them, though. This is interesting to say. Chelsea went in for Van Dijk when they knew we had that time. And we're just, from our info, we're just kind of like, go away. I'm not talking to you. Don't sort of cross my path at all. So Chelsea go in for, as a few journalists have verified, for Van Dijk and just simply dismissed out of pot straight away, which is always nice to hear, isn't it? Just because of who it is and who the player is. So that was brilliant to hear. Chelsea also, the names as it says on the screen should not surprise you, are in for Hato at Ajax and Huijsen at Bournemouth. Oh, look, two players we like and are linked with quite regularly. So genuinely the update we've got over the last few days is they are set to pivot potentially to Hato. They think they're almost out the race for Huijsen. They think it's like Liverpool and Arsenal if it's Premier League for Huijsen. So expect Chelsea in the next few weeks to probably pivot for Hato. Don't be surprised if they move hard, because we've said before, we like Hato, but our info is from analysts and different bits that it might just be a bit too soon to bring him straight into our lineup, and it might just not be the right time. So there's that in the mix as well. And then, as you said as well, look at Chelsea. Oh, look, David Ornstein. I don't know if you've heard these names at all, Trev. Looking at a striker, Liam Delap, Benjamin Sesko, Hugo Ekitike. I never thought I'd say this. I think Sweeney Todd is copying Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards' homework, basically. But everything that we're doing almost seems a little bit intertwined with Chelsea. So it'll be interesting to see how the two clubs' business develops as summer goes on.
In terms of, so in terms of pulling power, there shouldn't really be much comparison. All right, you're talking about hopefully sooner rather than later the option of going to the champions. Yes, a team that's likely to undergo some significant turnover, but Chelsea with Maresca, that project is very much it could or it could not. It's in the balance, that project. I think we can agree, and yet it doesn't stop them ever being linked with the very, very best players, because what will they do? They will Sweeney Todd it. They'll offer 17-year contracts and all the money in the world. And it's a remarkable sort of model that they're trying to get away with at the moment. And you're right. I mean, and by the way, this isn't the first window, unless I'm completely losing my marbles. Last window and the window before, we were saying they seem to be very interested in doing the same business as us. That's odd. For almost all the targets we were going for. Now, you could say that's just about there's a certain pool of really top-end players. It's a little bit more coincidental in that. Just in terms of the Chelsea thing, there's so much more we could talk about there. Do you want to come back to Chelsea later on, or do you want to have a little chat about them now?
We'll come back to them because there's quite a bit in terms of like transfers, players, ticket companies, and all sorts. So we'll save a little Sweeney Todd one as well. Yeah,
good, because that is going to be fun. I have to say, they just never cease to amaze me. On the goalkeeping front, I think you and I are both secretly nervous about the Alisson situation, but I think I've become a little less so over recent weeks. I don't know why. And again, I have no logic really that I can point to here, except I have this gut feeling that he will be around for next season. I was very much of the opinion that he mightn't be, because if we were going to be going with this Mamardashvili, move, I thought this guy might be in, and it might be a kind of hard out for Alisson. I'm hoping that's not going to be the case, because we heard little rumors where Mamardashvili was being quoted saying he wanted to be the number one and he'd rather stay where he was and be that guy there until he's ready to be that for Liverpool. This is all very good in terms of the likelihood of Ali staying, which means we'll have the best in the world for another season. That's great. But now we're looking at who's going to back him up. And I think everyone's very high on Yaros from what they've seen.
Yeah.
Everyone's quite high on Kelleher, but for some reason I feel like his stock has dipped a little bit simply because he's not Alisson. It's almost an impossible situation for Queevy and Kelleher to be in, because he's not Alisson. He always looks somehow as if he's not quite the thing. And I think that's really unfair on him. I think he's a wonderful goalkeeper. I do think he's likely to get a move to a club this summer, which will hopefully make him happy and Liverpool happy. But Yaros, I've heard links about loan. Now I'm back to thinking, okay, so who's backup? So talk us through keeper developments.
Yeah, it's, as you said, it's trying to piece it all together. I think the one thing that's pretty certain is Kelleher's going. Kelleher wants to go, year left. It makes sense to part on nice terms. And there's a lot of interest in Queeve, a lot of interest from like West Ham, Newcastle have got a noted interest, Bournemouth. There's a lot of noted interest for Liverpool there. So they will have no problem shifting him. It will just come down to price ultimately and how much you can get for a year left. So he's going. Yaros, yeah, as the article says there, for those that can see it, he isn't out of contract. A lot of people are speculating, but he's set for a new deal as almost a reward for his progress. Keep him on the books that way. Asset protection is probably the best way of describing it. But all the noises are that he's expected to be loaned out, Trev, that they're looking at a loan pathway for this kid. So all of a sudden you're like, okay, all the keepers are going. Like, what's happening a little bit there? So there is question marks around Alisson, as we've said before. There's some rumours that no one likes at all. There's the Mamardashvili situation. We know he's coming, it seems, next summer. But I just wonder if something's going to happen with the keepers that we were like, hold on, that wasn't the plan, or that wasn't what we were led to believe. It just seems there's four. One is certain to go, and the rest, you're a little less sure where it's going to land on. But yeah, it will be one that I think a lot of people have just assumed will happen. Like, I keep seeing no, it's fine. Like, Alisson number one, Mamardashvili will have to come in at number two and compete and it'll all be fine. I don't think it's going to be that straightforward at all this summer. It's definitely one to keep an eye on.
And in line with what we do in this show, let's just do a little bit of high-octane speculation in terms of potential fee for Kelleher. Were he to go out the door. And we saw it oscillate wildly between 15 and 30 million at various times. And I imagine a realistic number will be somewhere in between those two things. You could see how Liverpool could potentially pull somebody's pants down and get a great fee for Queevy and Kelleher. There is that possibility. And with the lads that we have at the club at the moment, you wouldn't be surprised if we got like a Jordan Ibe sort of fee for someone, kind of way where you go, how do we manage to, milk that much money out of some other team for a lad who can't get near our team at the time? So it feels like that to me. What do you think? Because we're going to have to start doing these sums quite soon, Dave, when the league gets in the bag. What do you think would represent reasonable turnaround for Liverpool in terms of factoring in that we can wish all we want for war chests? This is not what our owners do. The buys that we make will be based almost exclusively on who we sell, plus a small bit. That's about how it goes usually. So with that in mind, what kind of money do you think we could possibly take in for Queevy and Kelleher?
If he had a couple of years left to go, I think the 30 million would be a starting point. As we just put this flag in the ground and we work backwards a little bit from there, maybe with add-ons. I think the fact he wants to go there is only a year left on his deal. I actually get the impression that it won't take that much more north of 15 million to get it done. That also, because he's a youth product, it's profit straight on the books, isn't it? That way as well. So that figures nicely in the PSR figures as well. So I honestly think, and I can see people going 30 million. All the chips that were on his side of the table, because Keller's clearly going to say, I'm not going to sign a new deal. So you've got to get money for me now, or I'm going for free, essentially, aren't we? And we're not going to do that at the moment. So as much as I'd like to believe a big figure and a real add to any potential war chest, however anyone wants to describe it, I don't think it's going to be too much further north of 15 million, to be honest.
Yeah, I would say we might worry 20 out of somebody, and that might be the height of it for all the factors that you've mentioned. This next one is fantastic. And, just so you understand how the sausage is made around here, folks, we have to put out taglines with our shows. So our taglines will include the names that are in the stories that we will cover on the show. But it feels often like some people are coming to shoot the messenger with their own ideas about these players before we even get a chance to open our mouth. So all I would say is hold your horses. Yes, there's a picture of a lad there and his name is in the show, but can we talk about it before you start jumping the gun here? And let's get straight into this interesting topic, because there are a lot of players being linked with Liverpool. Kevin De Bruyne is one of the most interesting ones. Cherki, during the week after his performance, was being heavily, I think you used the word in the agenda here, manifested rather than linked. Yeah. I don't think these are links. I think these are people, willing it to happen, rubbing the sides of their temples. There's also Gittens as well. And again, I saw no tangible link there. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen anyone do a proper story who's got any kudos or credit whatsoever linking that player to Liverpool. Do you have something for me?
This is the most interesting one that I got today of the whole show, without doubt. And that is not going to be true for the first two, because as you said, KDB there. And he did an interview in the tunnel, didn't he, after the Everton game, where he was I think he came across a little bit salty, a little bit like, I'm not happy that this has happened. And he name-checked a couple of City directors and said, well, we only sat down for like 2 minutes. It was a business-like meeting, I was kind of told. So as he says, if you can see it on the screen, there's a little bit of shock, as I didn't have any offer from City the whole year. Obviously, I was a bit surprised, but I have to accept it. This is the line. I still think I can perform at this level, but I understand clubs have to make decisions. Now, he kind of said something a little bit towards that the other week, and people have quite rightly clocked this. This is not sounding like a guy that's getting ready to check out, for a big Saudi payday, or I'll head to the MLS for a bit of sunshine because I'm in the last bit of the pension milking type of thing. This is a player that is quite clearly saying, I think I can still perform at this level, which in football terms is offer me something if you're a Premier League club or a big club on the continent, basically, isn't it? So that is then, and you've seen it with Trent going, people are like, KDB, his creativity, his free kicks, that could be what we needed. So we dug around on this, and it was quite funny. One analyst said, in football terms, he's dead. His legs have gone. Literally in that regard. You can't get anything on this. And if we all put our sensible non-manifestation heads on, FSG giving big wages to a 33, whatever year old is, it's not happening, isn't it? We're not like
Thank you. That's the point, dude. That's the point. That's the beginning and the end of this story. Someone pointing out in the comments there that this is a fan media thing. Well spotted. This is what we're doing here. We're discussing the stories that are out there. We don't pretend to be broadsheets because we wouldn't want to be that shite. What we're trying to do here is talk about any information that's out there. Kevin De Bruyne is an interesting option that is available to clubs, so it is only correct that we talk about him, especially seeing as he's not hiding away, as you said. He's not off to take the Saudi bag and enjoy his semi-retirement. He wants to keep going. So the only factor here is, can anyone see a world in which FSG would pay the kind of wages Kevin De Bruyne would want for any period of time, even if it was only a 1-year contract? I don't see that. And I think that's where the story lives and then dies, as far as I'm concerned. Love to be proved wrong. It would be tremendous crack if we could have that lad around for a year, regardless of people wanting to bag on him and your mate saying he's dead. So the other two that we need to talk about, though, or the other two that we mentioned, let's go to Cherki first before we get into this Gittens link. Cherki did well in the week. Cherki is a player that a lot of people like. As Dave Hendrick said in the show, he's a tremendous YouTube player in that you can put together a lot of moments of Cherki, and he looks like a proper world beater. I haven't seen enough of him for me to say I have a definitive opinion one way or the other. I'm not that guy. I'm not one of those spoofers who pretends to know if I don't, and I don't with this kid. I've seen him play a few times. He is quite eye-catching, but then when he's not doing anything, he's not doing anything. So I don't know if he's the kind of player that will fit with Arne Slot. I'm not sure. What's the latest you've heard on this guy? Because that was a story that was being drummed up not only by fan media, but by the mainstream shower as well.
Yeah, whenever you ask around about this, you kind of get oh my God, has this name come up again and again and again? It's almost like the new Marco Reus, isn't it? All this time later a little bit. And Liverpool have watched Cherki. Like, everyone knows Lyon's financial situation. So if Liverpool wanted to do it and other clubs, a fee of around 25 million or so could well get it done. So then you've got to question, why is no one pulling the trigger for a guy that's a decent age, got around 30 goal contributions, and, as you said, had moments to shine, had real moments to shine at Old Trafford the other night. And by the way, I don't know if anyone saw him, but I'd have probably signed him after he grabbed a certain appendage, didn't he, into the Old Trafford fans. That would have been enough for me, but that's just a different conversation altogether. Again, when you look at all his metrics, and me and Bart's are going to run him on TMM the other night, Trev, you think Mo Salah doesn't defend? Mo Salah looks like Gattuso compared to Cherki, in all honesty. There's absolutely no way you can have Mo Salah and Cherki on the same pitch. You are essentially then defending with 9, and 1 we forgive because he's an Egyptian king and a demigod. That's fine. You can't have 9 defending, or you like the old PSG side of it. Do you remember when Neymar and Messi just didn't bother a little bit and were just
or the current Real team?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't work. Now I know people are saying no, it's fine because he can be on the bench. It's again, the suggestions about his attitude. Yeah. We're not fully sure about this. No one ever is because the story's coming out of France. But this one, again, it's just a manifestation name. When you speak to anyone and reach out, there's just nothing tangible for this. However, we save the best till last. Jamie Gittens, young winger, left winger, Borussia Dortmund, English as well, homegrown. Looks like he's leaving Dortmund this summer. Now, for those who've watched Dortmund a bit, he's a young winger, so he's going to go a little bit up and down, and he's been a bit out the team recently. But when he's been at his best, Trev, explosive, and I'm not underselling that. He's one of the quickest players in the Bundesliga, and they publish all their physical data, for speed and all that, so you can see. Absolutely rapid. This is the big thing about Gittens. Liverpool have had a hard look, is our info. And when the price was quoted, it was not a chance. Not a chance. Forget that. That's one to park. All the suggestions are they are prepared to lower the price on Gittens. It almost depends how much they're prepared to lower it. But our info is, if it comes to a certain amount, in Liverpool's sweet spot around that 40 million zone, don't be surprised if they move. Because, yes, they don't think he's necessarily a world beater just now, but there's a lot of raw materials there to work with. And as it says there on the screen, he's a player that Liverpool have been monitoring with their scouts for a long time. It's always been a bit of a question of, is he a bit raw? Is the price right? So if the price comes down, don't discount this one anymore, is the noise we're getting.
And he is a little bit younger than Cherki. I think Cherki's 21. Yeah. Jamie Gittens 20. I'm not sure when he turns 21. So there's very little in it in terms of the age profile. I get very much the strong impression that Cherki has played more football.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than Gittens. But obviously, if our, boffins are watching him and they rate him, an awful lot of people were dubious about Mo Salah, about Sadio Mane. People said that Virgil van Dijk was good, but he wasn't 70 or 80 million good. And, they got all those right, including Fabinho as well as another fantastic recruit, and Alisson. I guess we have to trust the people to do their jobs to the best of their ability. So if we're in for this guy, I'm very, very interested.
I should say on this is important. This is not us saying, it's not saying like he's the top target. He's absolutely the one we're moving for, just to be clear, people. I see people going, why? Just the info that we've got is if the price comes down enough, Liverpool are back being interested solidly in Jamie Gittens. That's all it is.
Absolutely. And, when we have strong enough opinions about footballers to articulate them like we have, Dave and I will, about the players that play for Liverpool or players we've seen regularly not play for Liverpool that we'd love to play for Liverpool, we will. But in this situation, there isn't enough of a sample size there for me, for Gittens, and I haven't seen enough of the other lads. So to be interesting, it's interesting to see what could happen. We'll keep an eye on that. Like I say, if our guys are interested in any of these players, there's something there worth talking about. In terms of just one last story, we were heavily linked with Mr. Ekitike, and we saw him perform recently. Most people were able to see him perform in Europe recently, and they drew their own opinions. Like we've seen wildly differing opinions there in the chat about different people.
Yeah.
Hugo Ekitike is one of these guys who's getting contrasting verdicts from different people. But whatever you thought of him as, is he the greatest ever? Is he the worst ever? He was someone that the club were very, very interested in. All top clubs seem to be keeping an eye on this kid. He was doing a lot of very impressive things. And then all of a sudden, in the week, the price that people thought they could possibly get their paws on Hugo Ekitike for seemed to go up, or at least that was the rumor, that the club were looking for considerably more than they had previously been. And in fact, the number I heard was 100 million or north thereof. Whether that was 100% real or not, I don't know. What do we know about this story and how it's developing?
Yeah, I mean, multiple reports coming out of Germany, as it says there. You have to think that Frankfurt are in such a strong position. They're brilliant at selling, aren't they? And Marcus Kroos has done such a good job. If there's any doubt, and don't need to go back through history like the likes of Luka Jovic, Muani, the other summer, they've sold for big money. We also know, Trev, they just got big money in January for Marmoush for City, didn't they? So they are in a strong position. They can demand top dollar for players if they're going to sell them. And that is part of their model. They sell players on, they build them up, and that is all there. But there's no cheap or bargain to be had here. And this is that end of the scale, because as multiple reports coming out of Germany, as you said, at least 100 million euros. Now, David Lynch said it on Media Matters today. Not only no chance for Liverpool at that price, his info is that, when speaking to, there's nothing really coming out encouraging. As we said the other week, all the noises on Ekitike are from his agent side and that agency trying to build it up. There's nothing solid you can get from sort of, this side of the pond, if you want to put it that way, or, we're around the club at all. It all seems to be from the player's side. And yeah, from just a pure analysis and when you speak to analysts, this player is not worth 100 million euros. He's just not. You know, I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's quick. He's got a few goals, raw tools, no doubts about it. He's not a 100 million euro player. He's just not. If Liverpool were going to spend that money on a forward, and that would not surprise me this summer, it is not going to be on Hugo Ekitike. If that price was, I'm being honest, Trev, I think you'd have to go close to halving it. Genuinely, you know, like around the 50 to 60 million mark for this kid. But I don't want to sound mean, but we've just been bitten by a project forward, haven't we? Spending big money on a project forward the last few years of pace. That was a move they are not going to repeat. It is not going to happen. So, in simple terms, if that price is true for Hugo Ekitike, we talked about it the other week. Get your pen out, put a line through that name.
For the record, seeing as we're manifesting, I'm going to do the rubbing of the temples thing. When it comes to strikers, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, get me Julian Alvarez, get me Victor Osimhen, get me who else? Well, we're not going to get Alexander-Isak for exactly the same reasons we're not going to get Ekitike, because now we're priced out of it. And we might be priced out of all the rest of those. I don't know, but you're right. I think the days of us going for a potential and paying big money for that, no. I don't see that being a possibility for us. If it ever, people thought it was going to be, I just don't think that's realistic to think about at all. Obviously, Gyökeres as well, please. Yeah. Anyone who's just got numbers coming out their ears, let's just do that.